Hey there everybody, '07. I want to do a quick video about custom tank sites for use in tank simulator battles. This came up earlier today. I was playing some tank sim with Games in Bed. Links in the description below. If you're not following Games in Bed on Twitch, you're doing yourself a disservice, and you're probably going to have a good time over there. Follow the link, give the man a follow, and check him out. Now, Games in Bed and I have been playing tank simulators together lately, and he's been having a hell of a good time with them, and so have I. And I mentioned these sites to him. He didn't know what I was talking about, so I wanted to do a quick demonstration video, and I feel like it will help everybody. These sites were given to me about 2 years ago, and they improved my game markedly, and I feel like they'll improve yours as well, so I'm happy to share. The instructions, for whatever reason, are written in French, so I'm going to walk you guys through the installation process and a practical demonstration of how they work, just to hopefully, for the visual learners, to make it make sense. If you come here to live WarThunder.com, the main WarThunder website, and you come in here to the sites section, and you can just go into 100 best posts of all time and most downloaded. Big shout out to the creator of this site pack, Shang Zhang, and he uploaded these on 25 March 2018 and has already hit the number 4 spot for most downloads of all time. Now, the thing that I love about this site pack is here we've got some instructions on how to use it, and we will run through a quick practical demonstration of that in test mission. But the thing is, these sites work for 392 vehicles. That's really nice as a one-stop shop. You come in here, you do one big download, you extract it one time, and then you've got 392 sites instead of having to do 392 separate downloads. So it's a huge list of tanks that is included in this site pack, and each one of them is actually custom tailored to correct for their own parallax. We'll get to the parallax a little bit later. So come in here and you just hit the download, and then I saved it to my WarThunder directory, which for me is just right in here in my Steam library, Steam apps, common, WarThunder, and then my folder did not exist. I had to create the folder. You might have to as well. I had to create a folder called user sites, all one word, no space, capital U, capital S, user sites. Once you create that folder, you can download Shang Zhang's custom sites straight to this location, which is where I put it. And then you can, I use my 7-zip here and extract it to this location, and boom, out popped all of these folders for all the different tanks that they have custom sites for. Once you put these folders here, you are done. You can close all this out. You don't need it anymore. If your game was running while you did that, you will need to restart WarThunder, otherwise you won't see them. But once you restart WarThunder, you'll be good to go. Now, Parallax is something that is unique to simulator. This is not for arcade. This is not for realistic battles. These site packs are unnecessary for these modes, and I would not advise them. They would just complicate things. But in simulator battles, they're very, very, very handy. And the reason we need them is because parallax exists. Now, parallax is a lot like zeroing a rifle. If you have the scope of your rifle up here and you have the barrel of your rifle down here, since those two objects aren't perfectly aligned, there is some sort of an angular correction, and that correction factor is dictated by the distance to the target. The closer the distance, the more correction you need. The farther it is, the less correction you need. But you need some form of correction. That's basically how zeroing a rifle is going to work. Now, the same exact thing applies to tank sim, because in arcade and in realistic, our point of aiming actually comes right from inline the barrel of the gun, as if our camera was pointing out the end of the barrel here. In Tank Simulator, your point of aiming actually comes from where the gunner would be looking through his sight. So here's our gunner, and here's the gunner's optic. And since that gunner's optic is not aligned with the barrel of the gun, there is some sort of an angular correction between these 2 points. And that is essentially what the parallax is. And basically, this is just the scope of a rifle rotated 90 degrees. So to help us correct for that, they've come out with these sites, and we can take one of our vehicles that is on the list, and we could take it to a test drive. You're going to have to put it into Simulators Battles difficulty, otherwise you won't need to be correcting for the parallax. So you take one of your vehicles here into Simulator Battles, and then you can pop on into your options. Main parameters, common battle settings, use alternative site grid. Now, This default grid sight, this is what you guys are probably used to seeing in WarThunder. Just the old standard grid sight with your vertical correction there and a little bit of lateral guidance there. That's not as useful in tank simulators because of the parallax. So see this bush here that's pretty close to us, you would think that, you know, if I had the correct vertical guidance, if I fired the gun right now, it would hit the stem of that bush. But when we fire the cannon, you'll see how off the gun is. Now, it was close, but it did not hit the stem of that bush. And if this was tank simulators, that could mean the difference between life or death, because that bush can now have a chance to have seen us and return fire while we're reloading. So to help us nail those shots, we've got these parallax correctors. Under main parameters, common battle settings, use alternative grid sight, and we come down here to this new folder that has appeared if you extracted everything correctly, the custom Shang VSW. Now this looks way more complicated, it's got way more numbers up here, but let me just break it down for you. Right here we've got a parallax correction line, and right here we've got some crude distance measuring tools. So starting with the parallax line, if you come in here, you see the closer the target is, the more severe the parallax correction is, versus the farther you get away from the target, the less severe that parallax correction is, until it pretty much is nil. And these numbers here are indicating the distance to the target, so 2,400 meters all the way down to 15 meters way down here, or 30 meters, 50 meters, 100 meters, 200 meters, and so on, and every distance in between. So if the target was 100 meters away, this would actually be our crosshair. Even though this is our center of our aiming point, and this is where our cursor is saying that we're aiming, if the target was 100 meters away, the shell is going to land right here. Very similar to this bush. This bush is maybe about 80 meters away, and when I aimed at it down here, you saw the shell impacted the ground over here-ish. So if we actually put the sight right about like that, we would hit the bush at the stem. Now, there's also a crude distance measuring tool, and that is right over here. So we've got one grid reference line, and then several distances ranging from 600 meters all the way up to 3,000 meters, and then two brackets for each distance. Here's the two 800 meter brackets, the two 1,000 meter brackets, and so on. Now these brackets are dictating the width and length of the enemy vehicle that you have in your optics. Those widths and lengths are based on just the average width and length of most tanks. But again, most tanks are not the same size. Like this tank right here is much, much smaller than that tank way over there. So this is just an average, and it's not going to be exact, but it will be quick, and it will be a lot better than other forms of guessing or waiting for the measuring equipment to give you a number. So using those grid reference lines, we can come in here and we can put our reference line right up here on the front right fender of this tank in the background. And then where he's not quite head on with us, he's about maybe 15 or 20 degrees angle off. The front of his tank is pointing over in this direction over here like that. But it's pretty much the width. So we'll put our reference line right on his front right fender, and then wherever the back end of his tank or the other side of his tank lines up, the width-wise, so he fits really nice and snugly inside these two brackets here, which is the 600 meter width. So that tank's about 600 meters away. And if we look at our parallax correction line, we've got a 500 meter mark and an 800 meter mark. So there's two more in between it for 600 meters and 700 meters. So for that tank over here, we're going to aim right about here, where the 600 meters, if you could imagine where that would be, right on that line. So if we put that 600 meters right on the front left side of his turret, right about there, and pull the trigger, we should hit a little bit low, but we almost hit the front left side of his turret. If we aim just a little bit higher, we should hit it now. There it is. Now if we do the length of the tank, that would be a good example way over there. Again, this tank isn't perfectly perpendicular to us, but it's close enough to get into the ballpark. So we'll come in here and we will align this first bracket with that front right fender, and then you can see the back end of his tank extends just a little beyond the 800 mark, but doesn't quite reach the 600 mark. So right about here would be 700, and it's just a little bit inside of that, so maybe 700 to 750. And so that's going to be right about here, just before the 800 parallax correction. And if we put that just there, right about where the turret and the hole are mated, and we pull the trigger, we should hit just about at that point. And there it is. We can get right in between. We can get a little sniping. Now, again, the distance, the farther it is, the less of a parallax correction. The difference between 500 meters and 800 meters, there's not a lot of parallax there. It's mostly elevation you're dealing with, but you can see when you get closer, the parallax becomes extremely severe. So when you're really close to a target, like let's say this truck right over here, let's use our distance measuring equipment and measure the distance to this truck. We come up with 150 meters to the target. Now, I don't have a 150 meter mark, but I do have a 100 mark and a 200 mark. So right about here is 150 meters. So if we take that 150 meters and I want to hit, let's say, that troop right there in his right eardrum, I'd put it right about in between the 100 and 200 mark, right about there. And you can again note that our actual point of aiming is right here at the barrel of the gun, but the shell should go right through this guy's dome piece. We pull the trigger, and there it goes, right through that guy's dome piece. That can absolutely make the difference between you living or dying in Tank Sim. And that's how you use it. I hope that helps. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below, or hit us up on the Discord. We'll be happy to help. And good hunting, be excellent to each other, and 07. See you another time.